everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Becky from RJF Makes and you're watching the Balfour wash bag sew along. Now many of you might have bought the panel from Sewing Street or myself. They're not available from myself until later on in 2026, but we are going to make the wash bag that is got a panel. It's several panels. There's 3 panels at the moment, but there will be more panels available. This panel itself is called Flower and Wings, obviously because there's flowers and wings, obviously. There's a pocket on the back, and there is a patchwork which we are going to make with using the interface method, a handle, and a really good inside. Well, obviously I've got mine stuffed out, but yeah. So you can grab the panels at the moment from Sewing Street. So that's sewingstreet.com here in the UK, but they do ship worldwide. And there is 3 panels to choose from. There is a tropical one, which is a teal colour, which is the one that I'm going to be demonstrating today, and one called Boat Life, which is basically like a marina style one. This one's my favourite, and the next one is my favourite, the one that I'm going to be demonstrating today. So let's get into making it. Right, okay, so it's just basic instructions on the panel. There's so many steps you do need this video to work alongside. So you're going to get your patchwork interfacing, glue side facing up, and you would have already cut out your 24 2.5-inch squares. And if you lay them out on the glue side and put them in rows of 6 and 4 down, you should have like a patchwork. Yes, it is raw edges. We are going to finish that off. Get your iron on medium setting and give that a really good press over on both sides. I'm just repressing mine because mine's probably just come off. As you can see, there is a few gaps here. Don't worry, we are going to sew these together to make the patchwork. Okay, so we're going to sew these together by folding this in half and pop a few clips down here. And we're going to do all the rows going across this way first. So I'm just going to pop a few clips in. Then I'm going to miss out this next row here and move on to this middle row. And then I'll come back and do that row eventually. It just means that it doesn't get in the way of my sewing machine. I'm going to miss out that row and go over to that last row. So I'm going to go over to my sewing machine and use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm going to use the guide on my sewing machine bed rather than using a 1/4 inch foot, but if you want to use a 1/4 inch foot, go ahead. I've got a Gutermann Sew All thread because we are bag making, you need a polyester thread. I've got a size 16 needle in as well, so that's size 16 100. And I'm using a Janome HD9 sewing machine, but you can do this on any domestic sewing machine. You might want to put a walking footer on at some point where we come to sew the bag together, because it can get a tiny bit bulky in certain areas. Okay, so we've got those seams sewn. We're just going to do those two other seams. So I'm just going to fold that. And then do that one there. Okay, I'm going to go and sew those two seams and I'll meet you back here. Okay, as you can see, it's got drastically shorter because we've sewed all those seams together. So what we're going to do is on each seam, where you can see where the two patchwork squares meet, you're going to snip in that seam allowance. And I'm just going past where the sewn line is. So I've just done that one. Move over to the next one. Repeat the same process for the next one. Then the next row. And the last row. As you can see, they're all moving. Right, okay, so you're going to get your patchwork right side facing down. Get your iron on, and you're going to press these seams towards this way. So this row of seams towards this way, this row of seams towards that way, and you're going to do alternate seams. So okay, flip it over and just give it a really good press this side. Okay, so you've got those rows done. We need to do these rows here. So you're going to fold them in half, and what you will notice is your seams now nest. So this seam here is pointing towards this way, this seam there is pointing towards that way. So just going to clip along this edge to make sure the seams lie flat. And I'll repeat it for this side. My seam has just kinked over there, so I'm just going to repress that. Okay, then we're going to go back to our sewing machine. So 1/4 inch on this side and 1/4 inch on this side. Make sure your seams are lying flat. Okay, and then you're just going to do that final middle seam there. Going to fold it in half. clip the seams into position. And then I'm just going to go back to my sewing machine and sew 1/4 inch seam allowance on this side, and I'll meet you back. Okay, so I've gone ahead and sewn that, and you're going to repeat the same process, but this time we're not going to snip into the seam allowance. We're just going to press the seams up or down, depending on how you feel. Some might want to go up and some might want to go down. That's fine. Don't worry about that. We will be covering the seams up anyway with fusible fleece. Just going to give this a really good press now. Okay, so you should have your patchwork done. We're going to pop this to one side for now, and we're going to just grab the other main outer body piece. Okay, so I've got my main outer body piece with the interfacing on. We've put the fusible fleece. We've got 2 pieces of fusible fleece here, which we're going to pop to one side for now. Okay, so you're going to measure up and across 1.5 inches. So that's across and up. So I've got 1.5 inches here. I'm just going to mark. I've got 2 marks there. I'm going to do that for these 2 corners here. I'm going to get something round, so I've got a duct tape roll here. And where those 2 marks are, you're going to, excuse if you can see my head, just pop that on the corner and draw around it. So I've matched up the edge of the tape to this mark here, and then obviously just off the camera, the edge of the tape to that mark there. And I'm just going to draw around it in that section there. And as you can see, I've got a curve there. I'm going to repeat the same process here. Okay, so I'm going to fold this in half and give it a good crease for now. We can undo that crease later. Pop a clip in. Put some clips like this. And then we're just going to trim around those 2 curves, which then you should be going through 2 layers of fabric. There's one. Two. Okay, I'm just going to get rid of those marks. And get rid of that crease. Okay, you should have something that looks like this. You're going to grab your, this has now come your template. You're going to use this to do some markings on other pieces now. So you're going to grab your two lining pieces, which have got interfacing attached to the wrong side. I'm just going to pop a few pins in so they don't move around. Oops. Making sure they're perfectly neat on top of each other. Okay, and put this on top. And technically, you should only really have to draw around the curves at the top here. So I'm just going to do that. Just going to put some clips on those corners. Okay, and then I'm just going to trim around those corners. Okay, so pop those to one side. If you want to, because sometimes your curves might be different at the top and at the bottom, if you flip it all over and just put a B on the bottom, which means the bottom of the bag, the base of the bag. Okay, and then we're going to get the patchwork. We know where the centre is of the patchwork here, but one thing we are going to do is get that template piece that we made. Just give that a good finger press. Okay, so we're matching up these centres with the centre bit in the and we're matching up these two centres here with that centre there. Okay, I'm just going to pop some weight on this, so I use hockey pucks. And then I'm going to draw all the way around. Okay, we're going to pop that to one side and we're going to get back our template. And this time we're just going to finish off the fusible fleece. So I've got my two pieces of fusible fleece together. I'm going to pop this on top. And I'm just going to pin through all the layers. Okay, and then I'm just going to trim off the excess fleece to start off with. Remove the pins. Just going to take that layer off. And then I'm just going to fold these in half, matching up the curves. Then I'm going to trim an extra 3/8 of an inch all the way around. So you should be left with something a bit smaller than your actual panels. And if I just get this panel here and put that on top, you should have a minimum of 3/8 of an inch to half an inch free all the way around. And you'll need to fuse the fusible fleece using the manufacturer's instructions of the fusible fleece onto the wrong side of this panel here. And then you're going to get your patchwork piece, put the fusible fleece in the centre, make sure you're free from fusible fleece all the way around. Using the manufacturer's instructions, you're going to press that into place. I'm going to do that off camera and I'll meet you back. Okay, so now I've got the fusible fleece attached to those pieces. Flip one over, doesn't matter which one, and get one of your lining, and remember where the B is, that's the bottom. So this is the bottom of this. And you're going to pop those wrong sides together, and you're going to clip those all the way around together to make them one piece. Okay, so I've got all those clipped into place, that lining piece on the back. If you find that your lining overhangs, don't worry, we'll trim that off in a bit. So we're going to go to the sewing machine with the main panel pointing up. You're going to sew just over 1/8 of an inch all the way around. Base stitch it, so lengthen your stitch length to like a stitch length number 5 on both of those. have any excess lining, please trim it back. Just make sure you've got it all the way around the stitching. Sometimes this happens, it's where the lining moves or the lining is a little bit too big because you cut it wrong. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to just quickly do is find the centres of the two top and bottom of each of these and snip it into the seam allowance. And repeat the same process for the other panel. The seam allowance is 1/4 of an inch, so make sure you're definitely within that 1/4 of an inch. Okay, so we're going to pop the patchwork side to one side and pop this to one side, but we will be coming back to it. So you're going to get the pocket binding piece. You're going to fold this wrong sides together, matching up the two long edges, give it a good press. And you're going to unfold it and bring the two long edges into the centre and giving it a good press. And then I'm just going to repress mine because mine's just come undone. So you should have a double fold binding. And then I'd just like to go one step further and press it again in half. Okay, just pop that there for a minute. We'll come back to that. You're going to get your pocket lining piece, and that should have some interfacing on. You're going to get your pocket outer piece, sorry, with some interfacing on, and your pocket lining piece with some interfacing on. Okay, so you're going to pop this wrong side facing up, this wrong side facing down, and clip along that top edge there. Okay, you're just going to go to your sewing machine and base 1/8 of an inch away from that edge, using a long stitch length. Okay, so I've gone ahead and done that. You're going to get your binding, and you're just going to open it up as best as you can. Pop that inside, like so, and fold the binding over. And you're just going to run clips along that top edge, so it holds the binding into place. Okay, then you're going to sew 1/8 of an inch using a top stitch length of number 3.5 to 4, 1/8 of an inch away from this edge, and then I like to do another row about 1/4 of an inch away from that sewn line, that stitch line that I just did, just to reinforce the pocket. Okay, so I've gone ahead and done that. Now this all depends on how you want it. You can put it on this panel if you want to, or you can add it to the patchwork panel because you might not be much of a patchwork person. So you can just add it to your patchwork or the main panel. I like patchwork, so I'm going to put it onto the main panel. You're going to pop the bottom edges together and the side edges. I'm just going to get a quarters rule to make sure this is nice and straight before I clip it into place. Make sure that is nice and straight because it looks a bit wonky to me. Was. Okay, so I'm just going to get a few clips, clip it so it's in position. And I'm just going to run some more clips down here. And then 2 clips either side of this one here. Then I'm just going to flip this over. And as you can see, we've got a bit of pocket overhang here. So don't stress about that at the moment. We're just going to base stitch on the main body piece within the seam allowance all the way across, reversing our stitch at the start and at the end where that pocket is, and then we just trim off this excess part of the pocket. Okay, so as you can see, my stitch line here is curved. I'm just going to flip this over and trim off any of the excess of the pocket. On either side. Okay, so you've got your 2 main outer bodies parts finished. I'm going to pop those to one side. Okay, so I've got my zip gusset pieces. So I've got 2 lining pieces which have got interfacing on the wrong side. And I've got my 2 outer pieces which have got interfacing plus fusible fleece. And I've trimmed the fusible fleece from the outer edge using 3/8 of an inch or just over 3/8 of an inch. Okay, so I'm just going to grab 2 pieces. You should have a number 5 zipper with 2 zip pulls in. So I've got 2 zip pulls that open in opposite directions. And I've sewn across the 2 ends so we don't lose them. I'm quite lazy when I put my zippers onto my gussets, so I always like my zippers a bit longer than the actual panel itself so I can pull the zippers over. Okay, I'm just going to pop that bit there. So this is right side facing up. You're going to get some quarters tape. And 1/4 tape along this top edge here. Okay, peel off the backing tape. Okay, flip this right side facing the right side of the zipper. And you're going to pop this edge where you put the quarters tape to this edge here of the zipper. And you're going to match up the edge. And stick that down into place. As you can see, I've got my zips overhanging so they're nowhere near from when I come to sew the thing together. Flip it over. And in between where that panel starts and stops, oh, just move that a bit. I'm going to run some more quarters tape on the wrong side of the zipper. Okay, peel off that backing tape. Then you're going to get your lining piece, right side facing to the wrong side of the zipper, but to the right side of your main outer piece. And you're just going to match up there and stick that into position. Okay, so I'm going to go to my sewing machine, change over to my zipper foot, and I'm going to sew. This is the only time when we're sewing the zip on is where we use 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. So we're going to use 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, standard stitch length. Okay, so sewing across there, we're just going to press this open. Just going to give it a finger press at the moment while the iron's warming up. Flip it over and repeat the same process. And then I'm just going to go back to my sewing machine and top stitch 1/8 of an inch away from that edge there, using a top stitch length of number 4. Okay, so I've gone ahead and done that. We are going to repeat the same process for the other side and attach this outer zipper piece and this lining zipper piece, and then I'll meet you back. Okay, so you should have those sewn together. Just going to bring my zipper pulls into the middle now, and I'm just going to trim off the excess. Now be careful, don't pull the zipper pulls because remember we haven't sewn over those. So then pop this to one side for a minute. And we're going to get the handle piece. So the handle you basically need interfacing on. I'm going to fold that in half and give that a good press. Then you're going to open it out, bring the two long edges into the centre, give that a good press. And you're going to fold it over and give that a good press, and then put some clips down to the side. Okay, now we're going to top stitch along this edge here and along this edge here, 1/8 of an inch away using the top stitch length number 4. Okay, so you're going to get your base gusset outer piece. Should have the interfacing and fusible fleece attached to it. Working on one of the short sides, you're going to measure in 1¼ inches. You're going to pop this like so, matching up those two edges, and you're going to make a U shape, match up those two edges like so. Then you're going to base stitch these into place using within the seam allowance, and I would use a a stitch length number 4 to base stitch these into place. Okay, so I've got that into position. You're going to grab your lining piece of your base with your interfacing attached, and you're going to grab your zipper gusset that you just finished. Right, okay, so we're going to work on this side first, get this bit out of the way. Put this right side facing over, and just pop a few clips, or one. Then we're going to flip it over, get our lining piece, flip that over, right side facing to the lining of the gusset, matching up those raw edges. Okay, while we're here, We're just going to bring this edge of the lining to the other side of the zip gusset. I'm going to do the same with the base gusset, bring this over and sandwich that zipper gusset in the middle. Okay, so we're going to go and sew 1/4 inch on both of those there. Then you'll see me on the sewing machine turn it right side facing out, and then I will top stitch 1/4 inch away from where the zipper gusset meets the base gusset. I will show you that on the overhead camera after I've done the top stitching. Okay, so I top stitch 1/4 inch away from the zipper. As you can see, we've got the floppiness of this, so we need to clip all the way around. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is base stitch within the seam lines all the way around on both of these edges, so it makes it one complete piece. So join me over at the sewing machine with some nice music. Okay, so I've got that as one piece. Just going to move the zippers to one side for a minute. We're going to match up where the two seams join on each side. Just give that a clip. And the same on this side. Got my hand inside there. And then we're just going to snip here and here within the, to find the centre of the zip gusset. And snip within the seam allowance. And same on the base side. Move those clips. Okay, turn this right side facing in. Okay, and we're going to get one of the main outer panel pieces. I'm just going to get the front. And we're going to line up the zip gusset center of one of the sides to the center of the top of the main panel and give that a clip. And we're going to do the same with the base gusset, wherever the center is. There's my center, and the center of the main panel, right sides together, and give that a clip. Okay, so we're going to run some clips on the two top rows here first. So, up until where the curves start. Okay, flip it round to the bottom. Okay, so we're just going to fold this down a bit and pop a clip on this edge here. And I'm just going to do the same on this one. And then what I'm going to do is just eyeball, I can get this clip on, where this seam is and this seam, and make sure they're kind of in the same place, which they are. Okay, so I'm just going to add a few clips to where the curves start on each edge. Okay, so where the curve edges are, you're going to need to snip into the seam allowance of the gusset. I'm going to use my other scissors. And you're just going to do a few snips, just so you can go around that corner. And then what you're going to do is the snips will open up. You can just see them slightly opening up to go around those corners. And you're going to do that for all four corners. So I'm going to go to my sewing machine now and sew 1/4 inch all the way around, reversing my stitch at the start and at the end. I'll start off on a flat edge rather than a curved edge. I use the tailor's awl to help me go around the corners and just make sure all the fabric's lining up. And I use a lower stitch length than a standard stitch length, so I knock mine down from a 2.5 down to probably a 2.2. Just means that you can get a nice tighter curve. Okay, so I've gone ahead and touched that. I'm just going to pop this to one side. And in the pattern or on the panel, it tells you to get a 2 meters of 3/4 inch wide bias binding, which is double folded. So when I say 3/4, it should measure, once folded, it should measure 3/4 inch. And your 2 long edges should be into the center. You're going to go one step further and go ahead and press this completely. So you've got a nice little strip and it's double folded basically, but it's triple folded. Okay. Okay, so you're going to open up your binding and sandwich that seam all the way around, like so. And you're going to go all the way around. You're going to need some fray check or fray stop to seal off the end. Okay, so where the binding starts, you want an overlap of about 1 inch where it ends. I'll remove that clip for a minute. You're going to sandwich that binding in between that. Okay, I'm just going to move that over. You see where the raw edge finishes? We're just going to get some fraiture or fray stock, depending on what manufacturer you use, and just dab a bit on the end so it doesn't fray. Okay, so I'm going to go to my sewing machine. I'm going to do 2 rows of stitches, just so it gives the structure that we need. So using my tailor's awl, I'm going to go 1/8 of an inch away from this edge here. Then once I've gone all the way around, you'll see me just move it slightly underneath my foot, and I will go in the centre just so it catches the binding on the other side, just in case you haven't caught it on the first go round, and second because it adds a bit of stiffness to the actual to the binding. So when you come to make the bag, it's like a bone structure going all the way around and gives it a nice shape. So I'm going to go and use a standard stitch length, and that's and 2 rows of stitches. Okay, so I've gone ahead and added that, the bias binding. So off camera, I'm going to attach the last panel, the last outer panel, right side facing down. I'm just going to open up my zipper a bit so it just means that I can get access to it afterwards. Using the same method, match up the centres, clip all the way around and snip it into the curves. And then I will add the bias binding and then I'll meet you back. Okay, so I've gone ahead and sewn all the way around on those. I'm going to open up the zipper. And turn these right side facing out. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stuff this out with some stuff in, like some bubble wrap, and give this a really good press and I'll meet you back. And there you have it, a finished wash bag. Obviously I've stuffed this out, given it a really good press. Yeah, so here is the tropical version. Here is the flower and wings. So, and it really doesn't matter which side you put the handle on, it's personal choice. And then last but not least, here is the boat life. As you can see, it's got the marina drawings that I've done on there, and it's got that patchwork on there. All I've just gone ahead and done is cut two little thin pieces of cork fabric, thread them through the zipper pulls, and just tied them up into a knot. Thanks ever so much for watching, and I hope you really enjoyed the video. If you liked the video, please give me a thumbs up and drop a comment below. And basically, I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Bye!